Hello, and welcome to Engineering Ethics at NJIT. I'm your instructor, Daniel Estrada. This is the Hangout for Lesson 6. Let's jump into the class. So during these Hangouts, I usually wait around for people to show up to chat about class. No one's been showing up in the last few weeks. I'm going to stay in the video conference for the entire hour that the Hangout is supposed to go. So if you have questions, if you want to show up and chat with me, please show up at this hour on video chat. I will be here for this hour. It's like my office hours. But I'm not going to record the whole thing. I did just want to say add one thing to the lecture video, which is something from the news recently. Remember back in lesson 6, episode 6, in lesson 6, we were talking about, I'm sorry, in lesson 5, we're in lesson 6 now. Remember back in lesson 5, we were talking about whistleblowing, and one of the optional cases was the VW emission scandal. I didn't say much about this in class, but VW emission scandal, they were putting faulty emissions detectors starting from 2009. It wasn't that they were faulty, they were engineered precisely to give false readings in testing environments, but exhaust more out in the real world. And this was occurring on products since 2009. It wasn't discovered until 2015. No one blew the whistle during that time. It had to be discovered by the EPA doing regulatory testing. And they found the emissions were way over what they were being claimed. So this is a big scandal. And the thing I wanted to point out was just that when the scandal broke, the CEO blamed it on engineers. And CEOs claimed that it was an engineer decision to install these faulty emission detectors over the course of several years. So it's a lie. It's bullshit in the technical sense of bullshit. So Harry Frankfurt's a philosopher. He writes this book on bullshit. So bullshit, he's distinguishing between liars and truth. So he distinguishes liars and truth tellers. So a truth teller wants to tell the truth, is committed to the truth. Truth tellers might get it wrong sometimes, but when they get it wrong, they want to correct what they said because they're committed to the truth. A liar is the opposite of a truth teller. The liar wants to tell the falsehood, and it's important to the liar that they're telling a falsehood. Right? You can imagine that you can imagine reasons that you might want to lie to someone. Someone's asking for your number at a bar, and you want to get rid of them, but you don't want to. You want to give them a reason to go away, so you give them a number, but you give them a fake number. You don't want them to call you. It's really important. So you're lying, but it's really important to you that that number is false. So if you accidentally gave the correct number, then that would be a big mistake. So Frankfurt says that both lying and truth-telling are similar because they involve a commitment to the truth. They have opposite attitudes towards the truth. One wants to tell the truth, the other wants to hide the truth. But in both cases, they care about the truth. And what makes a bullshitter different is that a bullshitter doesn't care about what the truth is. The bullshitter has ulterior motives for saying what they say. It's not out of an interest in the truth. It's not out of interest in hiding the truth. It's out of some other reason. So the news that you watch on cable news or the evening news programs tend to be bullshit in the sense that, not that they're saying false things, most of what they say is true. When I was young, I lived in LA, and LA almost regularly, almost weekly, there would be a highway chase on the news, on the evening news. You would turn on the news, and there would be a high-speed chase down the highway. So so it was true that this was happening. They would have little helicopters following it. You would watch, but they're not showing it to you because it's true or because it informs you about your world. They're showing it to you because it's fun to watch, and the more people that watch, the more money they get from advertisements, right? So their motive for showing you this is not about the truth or falsity; it's about the advertising dollars. And same thing here, right? So the motive for blaming it on the engineers is not because it's true. It's not that it's false. It's not merely lying. It's bullshitting. He has other reasons, and the other reasons here have to do with diffusion of responsibility. He doesn't want to shoulder the responsibility himself. We've talked about these diffusion of responsibility cases in the past. So I just wanted to link that Volkswagen case to contemporary case, this Equifax breach. Equifax is a credit score checking company. So people have credit scores, and if you want to check your credit score, you go to Equifax. There's a couple of these companies, but there's only a few of them. And you have to give them all your credit information, your social security number, and so on. So they had private information for a huge number of people, and all this private information was leaked. 145 million people. That's basically everyone with a credit score. So many of you, if you have credit scores, were affected by this. And 145 million people affected, and the CEO explains that this happened because one of their IT employees forgot to install a patch. So again, I want to say that this is bullshit. It's not just that it's a lie, but it's trying to cover their butts so that they don't have to bear the responsibility. By the way, the CEO who blamed the technician also conveniently retired the week before all the scandal burst. Retired with a nice retirement package. 145 million person leak. So look, it's bullshit. It should never be the case that a single IT employee has the capacity to leak 145 million personal data, like social security numbers, like credit scores. Right, this is private information that is like how people access their banks and so on. Leaking all this information puts everyone's data in a lot of risk, and this should be a high security, high priority task. The fact that Equifax could have such a massive failure from a single employee failing to install a patch says less about that employee and more about the organizational and management structure of Equifax. There was a very nice Twitter thread. There's never a single person at fault for a poor engineering decision. This isn't me as an engineer talking, this is Management 101. You would laugh out of the room a CEO who said the reason that we didn't file our taxes last year was because an employee forgot to buy a stamp, right? It should never be the reason that you don't file taxes that an employee forgot to buy a stamp. There should be multiple redundancies on this kind of thing. This should not be the kind of thing that can cause a system-wide failure. If it is the kind of thing that causes system-wide failure, then the whole system is insecure, is compromised, right? And it's not the fault of the employee who forgot to buy the stamp. It's the fault of the entire system that has that as its process, right? So in this Twitter thread, talk about other kinds of processes, a ticketing system to make sure that patches were done in a regular procedure, that there was evidence that was done, that there were people who were responsible for making sure it was done. Like, these are basic protocols for any kind of professional environment. The fact that this was not how Equifax operated its security system, especially when 145 million people depended on that security system to protect their private information. Right? This is a failure of the institution. This is a failure of the organization. In the Twitter thread, he talks about the two-man rule for changes to critical systems. Right? If there is a change that could have such drastic impact, you don't just have one person on it, you have multiple people on it, right? Multiple eyes watching that same thing. There has to be a consensus among a team before movement can be made that can expose such a risk, right? You don't have just one person, especially one person at the bottom of the hierarchy, who has this kind of control. Again, this is a failure of leadership, this is a failure of management. And ultimately, I want to say this is a failure of integrity. So our lesson this week, that's the theme for this week's lesson, integrity. Honesty. Usually when we talk about honesty, when we talk about integrity, we mean honesty. But I want to talk about integrity in a much more general sense than that. I want to talk about integrity in the structural sense, the way that we talk about a bridge as having structural integrity or not. That it's built well, that it's reliable. Not only that it can support your weight when you drive over it, but that you're confident that it'll support your weight, right? So the bridge that'll hold your weight, but that hasn't been inspected in 50 years, and so we don't know if any of the bolts are rusted out. I mean, it might actually support your weight if you drive over it, hopefully, but maybe not. And in that case, even if it does support your weight, it still doesn't have integrity because it's not a reliable, consistent, dependable resource. So I want to talk about integrity. In the lecture, I talk about integrity in relation to Aristotle. I say a lot of things about Aristotle. This week is a little light on content, but I have this Lynn Sharp Payne organizational integrity paper, which I really like. This is a business ethics paper, not so much an engineering ethics paper. And then I have all this material on Aristotle. Good luck with it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the Hangout there. Oh, by the way, your word for the Hangout is Equifax. If you put Equifax into the attendance quiz for this week, you will get full credit for this week's attendance in the Hangout section. So that's all I wanted to say. Like I said, I've been here for 15 minutes. It's 1:15. I will sit and on this online call, and if you want to just show up and chat about any of the material, we can continue talking. These are my online Hangout. My online Hangout is my online office hours. So if you want to come to office hours and don't want to come to campus, please just check into the video call between 1 and 2 on Wednesday. All right, that's all for me. Thanks a lot for those who watched. See you next week.